Most agent tasks do not fail because the model needs a more clever prompt. They fail because the assignment begins with a blank box while the real work is scattered across documents, messages, spreadsheets, decisions, and unspoken expectations. OpenAI's guidance for everyday work starts from a different premise. Give the agent the materials your team already uses and ask for the first usable version of a concrete artifact. The goal is not a beautiful conversation. The goal is work that someone can inspect, edit, and continue. That changes what a good handoff contains. The agent needs source materials, constraints, review expectations, and a destination format. It also needs a clear definition of the artifact you want back. In this video, we will turn those elements into an agent task brief. You will learn how to choose the artifact, package the right context, define boundaries, make review observable, and specify a delivery format that survives the handoff. Keep one principle in view: do not ask an agent to understand your entire world. Give it the smallest complete package required to produce a review-ready first version. Begin with the artifact, not the activity. Help with this project describes effort. Produce a decision memo comparing the 3 launch options, describes something another person can review and use. OpenAI's examples include briefs, summaries, decks, workbooks, plans, process documents, daily updates, launch kits, financial reviews, and workflow audits. These are useful because each one has a visible shape and a next decision attached to it. Name the artifact in operational terms. State who will use it, what decision or action it supports, and what state counts as a first usable version. A first version is not final, but it must be complete enough to reveal missing facts and weak reasoning. Separate the deliverable from the larger goal. Improve customer retention is a goal. A cohort analysis with 3 prioritized hypotheses, supporting evidence, and owners is an artifact that can move that goal forward. Use a verb plus an object plus a decision. Draft the weekly operating brief so team leads can identify blocked work. Build the launch checklist so the release owner can approve or stop the rollout. Turn scattered research into a comparison table so the buyer can choose. The common failure is requesting motion without defining completion. The agent searches, summarizes, and writes, but neither side knows when the task is done. A named artifact creates an end state and gives every later constraint a place to attach. First, define a concrete artifact before describing the work. Second, connect that artifact to a real user and decision. Third, make the first version usable enough to expose what is missing. Real work already has context behind it. It may live in calendars, messages, emails, documents, dashboards, spreadsheets, trackers, decks, or discussion history. The task brief should point to the materials that can actually change the result. Do not paste everything. Build a source map. For each source, state what it contains, why it matters, how current it is, and whether it is authoritative, supporting, or only background. Put primary inputs first. A signed requirement beats a chat summary. A current dashboard beats last quarter's screenshot. A repository file beats a copied snippet when implementation details matter. The agent should know which source wins when 2 items disagree. Label uncertainty instead of hiding it. Mark assumptions, missing records, stale numbers, and facts that still require confirmation. This lets the first version separate evidence from inference rather than smoothing both into one confident story. For a weekly operating brief, the source package might include the current project tracker, meeting decisions, incident notes, and the calendar for upcoming deadlines. It does not need every historical message the team has ever sent. The common failure is context dumping. A long attachment list can bury the signal, create contradictions, and waste review time. Include a source only when it informs a claim, a constraint, a decision, or a required output. First, provide the materials that can change the artifact. Second, identify which sources are current and authoritative. Third, label missing facts and uncertainty instead of letting the agent guess. Constraints define the space in which the artifact is allowed to be useful. They include deadlines, audience, scope, budget, permissions, prohibited actions, required claims, and statements the agent must not make. Write constraints as tests, not vague preferences. Keep it concise, is ambiguous. Use one page, no more than 5 recommendations, and put unresolved questions in a separate section, can be checked. Separate hard constraints from preferences. Hard constraints block acceptance: legal language, data boundaries, approved channels, maximum spend, or a required format. Preferences guide quality but may be traded off when the evidence demands it. Define action boundaries as well as content boundaries. The agent may read files and draft an email without permission to send it. It may prepare a publishing package without permission to make it public. Reversibility determines how much authority is safe. Include stop conditions. Pause when a source is missing, two authoritative records conflict, a cost crosses the limit, a permission is unclear, or the task expands beyond the brief. A useful stop returns the blocker and the smallest decision needed to continue. The common failure is leaving constraints in the user's head. The agent fills the gap with reasonable defaults, but reasonable for the model may be unacceptable for the real audience, policy, or consequence. First, translate important preferences into checkable limits. Second, separate hard constraints from negotiable guidance. Third, define permissions and stop conditions before execution. Review expectations tell the agent how the first version will be judged. Without them, the agent optimizes for fluency and completeness instead of the decisions that matter to the reviewer. Define acceptance criteria before production. Ask whether the artifact answers the real question, uses the required evidence, respects the constraints, distinguishes facts from inference, and leaves unresolved items visible. Make evidence inspectable. Request citations to the supplied materials, calculation notes, changed files, screenshots, test results, or a short decision log. The right evidence depends on the artifact, but it should let a reviewer verify the consequential claims. Assign review roles. The agent can check structure, consistency, missing fields, and routine validations. A subject expert checks judgment. An accountable owner approves actions that publish, send, spend, delete, or make a protected declaration. Use the first usable version as a review surface. Do not wait for a polished final answer to discover that the goal was misunderstood. Early review should expose open questions, conflicting sources, and assumptions while they are still cheap to change. The common failure is asking for high quality without defining a rejection rule. If no one can say why a result fails, the agent cannot target the right standard and the reviewer cannot give precise feedback. First, define acceptance criteria before the agent starts. Second, require evidence that makes important claims inspectable. Third, keep accountable approval attached to consequential actions. Destination format is not cosmetic. It determines how the work will be consumed, edited, shared, or executed after the agent finishes. A useful answer in the wrong container creates another manual task. Specify the final surface and its structure. Is the artifact a markdown brief, a one-page document, a spreadsheet with formulas, a slide deck, a checklist, a ticket update, or files ready for a repository? Name the required sections, fields, ordering, dimensions, naming rules, and file location. If a downstream system will parse the result, provide the schema or an example. If a human will review it, optimize for scanning and decision speed. Ask for both the artifact and the handoff state. The handoff should say what changed, which evidence was checked, what remains unresolved, and what action is allowed next. This is especially important when a task may resume in another session. For a launch package, the destination might include a release checklist, approved copy, media paths, a risk table, and a final go or stop status. A prose answer that merely discusses the launch would not satisfy the task. The common failure is treating format as an afterthought. The agent solves the intellectual problem but returns a shape that cannot be published, imported, reviewed, or resumed without substantial rework. First, specify the destination surface and required structure. Second, include naming, location, and machine-readable rules when they matter. Third, deliver the artifact together with its verified handoff state. Now combine the pieces into an agent task brief. The brief is a compact contract between the person who owns the work and the agent producing the first usable artifact. Field 1 is the outcome artifact. Name the deliverable, its user, the decision it supports, and the state that counts as usable. Field 2 is the source map. List the approved inputs, authority order, freshness, and known gaps. Field 3 is constraints, hard limits, preferences, permissions, prohibited actions, and stop conditions. Field 4 is review, acceptance criteria, required evidence, human reviewers, and actions that require approval. Field 5 is destination format, required sections, schema, dimensions, file names, and output location. Field 6 is the handoff, completed work, unresolved questions, evidence checked, and the next allowed action. Use the brief before execution, then update it when the task changes. If a new source changes the decision, record it. If a reviewer changes the standard, revise the acceptance criteria. The brief should describe the current task, not preserve obsolete instructions. The common failure is writing the brief as a ceremonial prompt. Every field should change what the agent does or how the result is reviewed. If a sentence cannot affect either one, remove it. First, package artifact, sources, constraints, review, format, and handoff. Second, update the brief when facts or acceptance criteria change. Third, remove any instruction that cannot change execution or review. Good agent work does not begin with a blank prompt. It begins with real materials and a concrete artifact that another person can inspect, edit, and continue. First, define the artifact and provide the smallest complete source package. Second, make constraints, review expectations, and destination format observable. Third, return a review-ready first version with evidence, open questions, and a clear handoff. Use the agent task brief on your next assignment. If the artifact, sources, constraints, review, format, or handoff is vague, repair that field before giving the agent more tools or authority. Follow Tiny Agent. Tiny Agent helps you get better at using AI.